do that. Still. Yeah.
Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for this LinkedIn Live. We will be doing our new and renewed member celebration today. Extremely excited about all the people who are planning on joining us. This is a limited crowd for new and renewed members. So we actually do limit the number of people who can get on here, and we want to have like a really substantive conversation with our new and renewed members, getting understanding of what makes them want to have joined the ESTA, and then also what they're hoping to get out of it. So really excited about being joined today. Meg, did you want to say anything else?
Oh, no. I mean, boy, that's great, James. Not only do I get excited about new members, but I'm really can't wait to talk about, we have a member that came and joined, sold his company, and then rejoined because he got a job at a new company. And it's just so fun when people are gone for a minute and then come back. It's like just really a testament to our community and come and go or stay or, so I'm just excited to be here. Thanks for hosting.
Absolutely. As a great example of that, just selfishly, my company had a member on the Esports Trade Association board, and then that person left our company. Rather than disengage from the association, they found me within the internal group of people who were excited about esports and, sports and entertainment generally. So completely understand that thought process of seeing the value of the Esports Trade Association, continuing the relationship. Even if you fall off, there's a great opportunity to come back. And that
yep. 1 second, James. Like, that's so funny because the person you're talking about just sent me a note literally less than 10 minutes ago and said that their marketing department just approved his membership at another company and he's coming back too. So I just love it. I mean, for you as the member chair, I'm sure you like these sorts of stories, and it's great to be with y'all today. So welcome, everyone.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so without further ado, we've been talking about you a lot, Jacob. So we might as well have you join the conversation. That was a big preamble to say welcome back to the Esports Trade Association. If you would just tell us and the other members who are on here, and maybe everyone who's watching, what had you joined originally, a brief reason why you left, and then why you came back.
Yeah, so I owned a company in Columbus, Ohio, that was a small boutique AV vendor. I had run it for about 7 years. The opportunity to sell my business came up, and we did that. It was one of those things where they offered us the right move, and in that process, for the last couple of years of owning the business, I was a part of the Esports Trade Association because I have a very strong belief that esports is kind of leading into the future of all events to a certain extent with Unreal Engine and, VR, AR kind of adding into the event life. So when I sold, I moved to Boise, Idaho to be closer to my wife's family. We're expecting our first child in October. Thank you. So I met Mark, the owner of Amplified. I said, I'm a free agent. We had met on some touring work the year before, so hired me on the spot. I kind of brought up that, esports is a market that I'd like to get back involved in. Reached out to Megan, said, what's the deal? I've been gone for a while. I served on the marketing subcommittee while I was there. And then just really wanted to get back in and talk to some experts in the industry because, maybe some people don't know that Boise is actually a huge esports market. Boise State has 2 fifth ranked in the world players at 2 games that are escaping me right now. So there's a lot of money and excitement going into esports, even in this part of the country. So getting back into the Esports Trade Association was kind of a no-brainer just because I already have some of the relationships. And I think it's a great networking opportunity to talk to experts and industry leaders in more than just the event space, but in the experience space, in the gamer management space. Like all of the different experts kind of help me fine-tune how I want to approach getting into the esports business.
You mentioned, Boise State and esports. I know they participate in NACE, the National Association of Collegiate Esports. Also, great folks who participate in the Esports Trade Association. So those kind of connections can definitely be developed both by being a member and then by interacting with members.
Totally.
Jacob, tell me a little bit about Amplified.
Yeah, Amplified's been in business for about 19 years. Our bread and butter is, Fortune 100, 500 corporate events, either direct to customer or through agencies. We do a number of national road shows. We do a number of sales kickoff meetings, national sales meetings. The difference between us and a lot of companies is we're a little smaller, a little more flexible. We have, a 10,000 square foot warehouse full of gear, but it's more about our partnership at the end of the day. If our clients succeed, we succeed. This company used to be named Integrity AV before we changed to Amplified. It's still one of our core values today. And the thing that made me come over here as a former business owner and now to be a technical director here and an account manager here was that the owner showed me several times that doing the right thing was not just something he said. Even if it hurt his wallet a little bit, he was going to do the right thing, which I think is a really powerful thing. And not to throw shade, is not always the most common for AV vendors. Another thing that's different about us is we really try to disperse that grumpy AV technician, right? Like, it's more about the success of the show and making sure everyone has a good experience, whether they're cleaning up chairs, whether they're cleaning up trash, whether they're running video, whether they're on stage. At the end of the day, events are supposed to be fun. That's why we got into them. So we really focus on taking care of everyone involved. And not just, the $1 million client. I was telling Megan before we got on, our values are to take care of the $3,000 client just as much, if not, just having the same quality service that doesn't fluctuate based on the client's budget. At the end of the day, we want to give them a great experience.
That is a great pitch for an excellent production company. And I think that more of us could do better to realize that a $3,000 customer doesn't necessarily mean that they won't be $1 million customer in the future.
Totally.
I also work for a production company. You may have heard that because I
Yeah.
talk about myself constantly on these LinkedIn things. And then every other meeting I'm part of. I also announced that I was an actor as a child. So if we want to just get that all out there, the things that I mention in every conversation, I'll do both of those. But, we started working with a fighting game event that was a single stage and a single screen in a ballroom. And then, in 2019, they took over the Michelob Ultra Arena at the Mandalay Bay. So we have seen these events grow. And that doesn't just apply to esports, which is obviously what you and I in competitive gaming, which is what you and I are focused on here as members of the ESTA, but every customer who has a great or a need for a great partner.
Totally. I mean, we've had customers that have rented a single TV on a stand and a microphone from us that are now a $500,000 client that's touring the nation. So I don't ever write off any client relationship or experience because who knows where they'll end up, right? And we're a relationship driven company where when we partner long term. I mean, some of even before I got to this company, Mark's had clients for 15, 16 years that have grown in scale tremendously, but there's still that relationship that, they trust Mark and his team to make decisions that will make their experience and their event successful.
Awesome, Jacob. That is fantastic. And we certainly will have more from you as we continue on. But I'd like to talk to a few of the other people joining. And then anyone who's in the comments now, Nicholas, Bridget, Edward, great to hear your hellos. Feel free to, drop a line, what type of company you have, or maybe where you are. We'd love to get some interaction going in there and talk to each other as well. Just love to hear and see interaction between both our members and the people who check out these LinkedIn Lives. So I am clockwise going around this thing. I got Matt on here. Hey, Matt, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Glad to be here.
Yeah, good. Well, tell us a little about yourself, Matt.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So my name is Matthew Hickson. I am the CEO and founder of Gamers Glorified, LLC. I am also the head esports coach for Kishwaukee College. I'm also a professional gamer over 15 years under the gamer tag 99cent McFury. My grassroots are from the fighting game scene, but as gaming has grown and I got into the esports world, I'm now starting to compete overall in general, just for brand awareness, more of recruiting players and just spreading my business and what I do. Through Gamers Glorified LLC, I started off just by hosting events to try to find the gaming community in my area. As that grew, I decided to create a gaming curriculum now that I teach at an after-school program and junior high school, working on an elementary school and a high school now, where I pretty much teach financial skills, life developmental skills, and career opportunity through gaming. And then in the midst of all that, I still compete professionally. I'm entering Combo Breaker this month. I'll be in Daytona for CEO, and then I'll be in Vegas for Evo. So I still try to stay relevant on my end in the midst of all that. But that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Yeah, those are the best fighting game tournaments in the world. You've just
Absolutely.
listed them off. So, and any participation, just know that the Renaissance Schaumburg for the Combo Breaker, that's one of our properties. The Daytona area.
Also, I just got the okay. So Combo Breaker will be sponsoring my business and my after school program. So they're allowing me to bring some of my students from after school as sponsors for free. So that way they can get an understanding of how the actual esports scene works real time. So I think that's very exciting. I think that was a good move on them to get them exposure, from the grade school level up. So that way, if they decide to pursue it long term, they have that experience, prior when they were in grade school.
Combo Breaker is such a labor of love for Rick Thayer and his team.
Yes.
And they are amazing people. And everybody who participates in that tournament, from the production side is there because they absolutely want to be there. Nobody's there to make a ton of money or anything like that. That is one of those fighting game tournaments that I am super proud to be associated with in any way. But really, really impressive that where do you find the time for this? Like, of what you've described, I'm trying to figure out how a person would fit that into 24 hours, Matthew. What?
I've just from my prior background, prior to gaming, I was a mortgage underwriter for years. So time management is something that you have to have because, they're trying to close a property in X amount of time, so I have that background to manage my time really well. And also I hired my third employee. So I have 3 employees now. So that helps also. So I'm getting my time back to be more productive and to try to reach out to other schools and find my time to, practice myself for competition. So that actually helps also. Yeah.
Matthew, I would like to hit you up for advice on time management. This is one of those examples.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, you named 3 tournaments that I would love to provide the AV for, but really what I'd like to know is how you fit all that into a day. And that's another great reason to be part of an association, is that just because a person is, in production doesn't mean that every question you get or any information you can get from them is going to be production related. Like, this is incredibly impressive to me. Talk a little bit more about Gamers Glorified, because you talked about yourself and the places going and that stuff, but what are you trying to do with that?
So right now my goal is to pretty much get every single school in my surrounding city a part of my program. And as I get more schools involved, I'm actually hiring more people as well. So my goal is to, once I get into more high schools, for sure, I can hire some of the students within.
Right.
That way, because what better way? I'm trying to add that cool factor to try to, keep them involved. So what better way than like, hey, you are part of a gaming program that's at the high school that you go to, you know? So, and then from there, I try to, depending on what route that they want to take, whether it be on a professional side or just something on the back end with gaming, because of my resources and me just being in the esports industry as well, I allow them to use me as a reference point.
Sure.
Or if they need a recommendation letter, they're part of my program. They have tangible resources that they've done prior to at least get their foot in the door. Because I know, it's a growing industry. Everybody wants to be a part of that. And I try to let my students or everyone who's participating to give them a little bit of an advantage, and I tell them all the time, I'm like, actually, guys, a professional player, an esports coach, like, use me as leverage. Like, that's what I'm here for, and that's pretty much it. Trying to get my program into many schools in my surrounding city as possible. And in doing so, I'm also hiring within. On top of that, a couple projects that I'm working on now is I'm trying to break the stereotype of gaming and other traditional businesses. So I know that overall gaming is kind of still like a niche. It's like only certain people understand gaming. But in order for it to grow like it should be, in my opinion, we need to break out of that and get the businesses that don't really know about gaming, give them a benefit of why they should be at least into gaming. So prime example, I'm working with a financial company that you wouldn't think had anything to do with gaming.
Right. Yeah.
During them, I have a financial literacy class in gaming, that I teach. I can implement a workshop here, and that's a demographic that you guys really didn't know existed. So that's what I'm trying to do. I got a financial company on board with that. I'm actually talking to a local airline company as well to doing the same thing. So that's what I'm actually doing on the back end, because the more traditional businesses understand that you can benefit from it, the easier it is for other companies when they try to pitch something to them. They don't necessarily have to fully try to sell them on board. They can be like, yeah, I understand. I worked with Gamers Glorified. We did something here.
Right.
And it makes it easier for us overall. And I'm just starting off with the schools. Then from there, the financial services, this airline company. And I'm just trying to pretty much just chip away at the traditional stereotype to make it a lot easier overall for everyone else.
Yeah, I would encourage everybody on this LinkedIn Live and everybody who's going to listen to it to consider going to Esports Next this year in Chicago. I learned a lot about what you're describing. How people can use this to service some other part of their industry at Esports Next, and hearing from some of those people on how it's been successful. People just like you. You mentioned local a couple times, Matthew. Where are you local to?
I'm in the Waukegan, Zion, Gurnee area. So my surrounding areas is Zion, North Chicago, Waukegan. I'm on the border of Wisconsin, so I'm working with schools in Kenosha, Racine, Milwaukee. So I would tell myself anywhere within like a 25 to 50 mile radius, I'm trying to get involved with something. I'll be doing an event during the summer with the Chicago Public Library as well. I'll be at Gamers Universe. I don't know if you know what that is. The public library is hosting every year they do like a big gaming convention at the library. So I'll have a venue set up for there. One of my employees will be there. So I'm trying to get involved in as much as I can, as fast as possible, to be honest.
Yeah, that's totally fair. That's a huge part of the esports industry, and how fast we want to move versus how fast some things like you talked about Evo and CEO and Combo Breaker, like those have had a very organic growth over very long periods of time. And everybody thinks in the esports industry or in competitive gaming in general, that is where you start at the Mandalay Bay, or that's where you start at the Daytona Ocean Center. That is not the case. The case in esports and competitive gaming in general is that you start with one room in a ballroom in Waukegan, and then you grow into the Langham Chicago or something like that. There are real opportunities for growth, but we want people to understand that we're here to help you start to, not just have the biggest and best. There's some amazing companies in this space with tons of money to spend because they're getting something out of it. We talk about endemic and non-endemic brands a lot. Intel is a great example of somebody that is perfectly aligned with their gaming tournaments. Each one of us probably has some kind of Intel product in one of our, but Oakley and Herman Miller, those types of companies, phenomenal companies, not necessarily endemic to the industry. Oakley is part of the Esports Trade Association. Meg, is that correct? Yeah. And they have an amazing gaming glasses. Like that is a non-endemic brand, but they're super cool and everybody wants to be part of it. But starting at the Intel gaming level for Oakley doesn't make any sense. They're starting partnerships with G2 and joining the Esports Trade Association based out of Chicago as well, just to be for a little city plug there. And then, of course, Esports Next also being in Chicago is something that I want to point out too. So anyway, I've said a lot to say. You're doing an amazing job, and it's really exciting to hear about that. I'd love to hear more about like why you called your. Maybe we can go around the horn and talk about how your company got its name, because I'm also excited to hear how Integrity changed over to Amplified, which makes sense. But integrity is still a core value. So, but before we do that, I'd love to hear from a couple other people that we have on here. Beth, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you?
Hi, I am Beth Mikulski. I'm actually not too far from Chicago either. I'm Northern Indiana, Southern Michigan. I'm actually not fully immersed in the gaming world yet. I'm actually a student. I just saw a big opportunity in being a part of the Esports Trade Association. And yes, I am going to the Esports Next in August. Already have my room booked. I knew you were going to ask, so I had to say it.
I'm so proud of you. Great job.
So, I mean, I've been kind of following Megan around since last June, I believe, kind of following, just like watching, and I just saw a great opportunity to connect with people here, and yeah. So
That is super exciting, Beth. And I know both Jacob and Matthew would talk about how bringing people into their companies, people who are interested in esports, would probably be the best bet. You know, my company Encore signed up as an enterprise member, and we've held 3 separate career fairs with the Esports Trade Association that have been incredibly effective, and we've learned a ton from them. And we're going to continue to do them quarterly as we go forward, because we have 1,000 open positions. And if you are interested in esports, you're interested in the kind of work that we do. You know, you may not be working on a gaming tournament from the first day, but just like Jacob said, you know, those $2,000 customers that have a pop-up screen for their sales kickoff, you know, might have, you know, a pro gamer sitting on their team or something like that. You never know when it comes to that stuff. So while not every event we do is esports related, there is an opportunity to grow into a great career with it. And you know, we mentioned both being part of NACE from Boise State, and NACE contacting the Esports Trade Association saying, hey, we'd like to do more for our students after they graduate, because not every single one of them, very, very few of them, just like NCAA and every one of those sports, most people go pro in something other than the sport they play. So helping those kids find new opportunities with great companies like Amplified and Gamers Glorified would be incredibly beneficial to people like you, I assume, Beth, right?
Yeah.
And to jump in there, because you touched on something, it's not only the players. You know, there's programs now for broadcast for a lot of what we do and what you do over at Encore, of video technicians, audio technicians, lighting technicians that are essential to integrate. And it's interesting, specifically at Boise State, I've seen a lot of the theater. My background's a lighting designer in theater. I went to Otterbein in Ohio, but I'm seeing a lot of theater kids that are saying, I want to do cool lighting like rock and roll, but it looks like there's something to do over here in this esports space. I don't know anything about it, but I'm gonna try it, right? And I'm hoping I'm not speaking out of turn for Boise State. I've seen it, you know, anecdotally, that like, hey, let's bring a lighting designer over here and make our studio really hot, right? Like, let's make it super cool. The video broadcast team, you know, are doing things that they're doing daily broadcasts, you know, and I think a little bit of that is the virtual expansion during the pandemic. It's more accessible now, so more people are seeing esports tournaments, esports competitions, all of that, based on these students that are producing it out of the college and the high school level.
Yeah, that's a great point. We actually hired somebody we met through the Esports Trade Association, Peyton Childers, who worked for the Sam Houston Bearcats broadcast network. And he was part of their sports broadcast team. And so he joined us, got more experience, and now he works for the Rangers, working on their broadcast team. So he was able to turn that from us meeting him through the Esports Trade Association and realizing that what he really wanted to do was live sports broadcasting. And that was something that we were able to, they're one of our customers, and he was able to experience them being here in Dallas. So again, just an amazing opportunity that grew just from being interested in the technical side of competitive gaming. You know, Beth, are you interested in the technical part of it, or are you interested more in the soft part of it? Meg is incredible. Meg is one of the greatest connectors I've ever met in my entire life. Like, I don't know anyone that I could contact who would be quicker to get to the most important person in whatever industry, whether it's fantasy football or esports or literally anybody in the city of Chicago. There are places on earth that I know Meg would be the absolute best person to talk to. Is that something you want to be like, Beth, or is that something you want to, you know?
So I actually have a background in like promotion, events, and inbound marketing, which is currently what my role is. And I actually work at a radio station and digital marketing. So I've already kind of tried to push the esports on them a little bit to see if we can't get something started.
Yeah.
I can't talk about it, but I may have pitched something this morning.
Hey!
So I'm kind of more of that marketing and getting those events together and, you know, finding the purpose behind the events as well. Because there's not a purpose, then nobody's going to show up.
It's a great point. You know, Evo's all about getting 20,000 kids into a casino in the chaos pit and having them experience everything there. But ultimately, what they want to do is have people come through the hotel, and the artists are there because they're going to sell their merchandise, and you know the joystick manufacturers are there to reach their audience. There are very few, I would say, industry events like competitive gaming where you can have so much of your audience that is prime age with disposable income, tendencies toward gadgets, everything that makes us such a popular demographic. You know, you mentioned having your first. Congratulations, by the way, Jacob. I didn't say that out loud, but my kids are 13 and 11, and my 13-year-old daughter is a platinum 2 at Valorant, which is pretty remarkable for, you know, somebody of that age, and she's been like that for the last couple of years. So like I actively encourage her to come home and play video games. Like as soon as she's done with school, I'm like, it's Valorant time, baby, let's go, you know. And so obviously I'm and having an acrobat, I encourage that in anybody, Beth, but your experience and what you're looking for definitely works well with competitive gaming. And there are absolutely perfect opportunities and destination management companies. We have a couple of companies that I've interacted with through the Esports Trade Association that have their only job is to help influencers and events find their homes. So there are even opportunities to do that sort of thing if you wanted to specialize in that part of it. Really appreciate you coming in. Nick, I'm so excited that you are part of this, as always, to be. Why don't you introduce yourself and say what you and your dad are up to?
Yeah, good morning. So speaking of my dad, recently joined Regiment, which we'll talk more about in a second. But my name is Nicholas Anslin. It's a pleasure to be here. It's been an incredible ride with the Esports Trade Association over just not even a year yet, but the people that you see come through this organization, the talks that you hear, the knowledge, the wisdom, and the incredible diversity of backgrounds and experiences that gather together under this roof is really something special. I'm a little bit of an oddball when it comes to positions and category of job and whatnot. I call myself a seasonal worker, and I would also say that I'm leaning into a VR athlete of sorts. I had the pleasure of competing in a VR tournament recently with the EVA here in Flower Mound, Texas. So I'm kind of on the opposite side of the country from most of you guys, it sounds like, but there's a lot of cool stuff going down here in the South. Dallas is really turning into an esports hub, and it's super exciting. Speaking of which, shout out for Longview High School. Longview ISD just hosted what they called their mini E3 this past weekend. Still waiting on pictures and videos to come out, but I'll be sharing a bunch of that stuff. It sounds like a really incredible event, and I'm trying to get those guys involved in ESTA as well. Always preaching the name. And then I'm also involved, I mentioned the name Regiment. That's a veterans gaming organization, currently the #1 in the country. They're doing some incredible work. They've raised huge amounts of money and stuff for different organizations like Stack Up, which provide benefits for deployed service members and help bring gaming out to people that normally might not have access to it. Some really good groups, really good stuff happening there. So I'm just kind of plugged into a few different spots and trying to help promote the individuals in ESTA and some of the products. I work really close with Dr. Tom and Amy over with Sly, and super big advocate of that group. So we got that over to the side as well.
I can't keep them in my fridge. Every kid who comes over here takes them from me. So, and it's a totally appropriate drink for kids. Like, it's not a caffeine thing. Like, definitely check out Drink on the Sly, I believe is the website. Would love for them. Dr. Tom and Dr. Amy are amazing. Sorry.
No, absolutely. And it ties just what into, forgive me, I don't know if it was Matt that mentioned it, but the breaking stigmas on gaming. And one of the stigmas that, and this is to Dr. Tom's point, Dr. Amy's point, the stigma of gamers being these kind of like in the basement with Mountain Dew and junk food kind of thing. Like, that's not what gamers are, you know, like there's small percentages of stuff, but I think we're breaking that mold rapidly. And that's why I'm excited about VR gaming and the mix between athleticism and video games and different ways to what I call the holy trinity of body, mind, and spirit, of tapping into those different roots. I think gaming is a huge part of that. And to see gaming potentially tap all three of those at once, like it's super exciting.
Yeah. You have also mentioned that kind of stigma and breaking the stereotypes of gaming, and even at Esports Next, the original one that I attended in 2021 in person. How half the people who stood up there who were there to sponsor or participate was like, wow, I thought you were a bunch of sweaty nerds in your parents' basement, but it turns out y'all have suits and real jobs and things like that. And it's, as we continue to have esports next, those comments go away very, very fast. When you come back to the next one, you're like, okay, I'm here to do business. We've got the team from Madison Square Garden, here. We've got some of the best esports companies in the world, like, Team Liquid and Misfits and Version 1, Minnesota Rocker. Like those people, Bruce Stein from Axiomatic Gaming, former CEO of Kenner, when they got Star Wars and, to be action figures and Batman action figures, that was his idea, or at least that was the company when he was in charge of it. And then he was Sony Interactive Entertainment, and they invested, I think it was $250 million into Epic Games, and they bought it for the Unreal Engine. Speaking of which, they didn't necessarily buy it for Fortnite, but the fact that Fortnite has really exposed people to the Epic, and then obviously Unreal Fest and all those things that they have. It's a multi-billion. It was a $1 billion valuation. It's like a $60 billion valuation now. So somebody like that who believes so strongly in it, who was there to know that Star Wars action figures would be a trend, and that Sony Sony PlayStation would be a thing. Matthew, you got the hat on. You know what I mean? That was part of while he was there was during that time. So when somebody like that gets on stage and says, "I believe in this, and here's why," you tend to trust those people more than you do this in the South Park image of the nerd, you're like, oh, we all got that image in our heads, and at some point, many of us have been like that, but we have some great companies that speaking of Sly or Fit Gamer or some great physicality focused companies within our esports trade association who are there to help with the physical part of it, not necessarily the mind and the spirit, because those can be handled by other companies, but the body part, we have some great organizations that do help. And you mentioned it, so Regiment, I just was reading about Call of Duty and how much they're sponsoring, active duty soldiers and things like that. What else can you tell us about Regiment? Is that something that you could share or anything more about that?
Yeah, so recently the CEO, Mr. Chris, moved down to the Texas area, and it seems like he's getting pretty heavily involved in the EVA world as well. But they've got all kind of teams. Regiment.gg is their website if anybody wants to go grab more information. But they're involved in all kind of fundraisers and stuff. It's an incredible community. It's such a cool space to see exist. They're primarily based out of Discord, but yeah, you talk about people from all different walks of life. The military is, you never know who you're going to bump into. We like to joke and say it's 90% Texas and then 10% of, people from wherever else. But it's an incredible way to bridge people together, and they're doing some really special stuff. So if you guys want to show support, regiment.gg is the website for that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you mentioned fighting games earlier. I just wanted to have a quick shout out. We have a new member in the Esports Trade Association, Stephen Main. And I got to speak with him a little bit after that Coffee Connections call recently. Awesome guy, super knowledgeable guy. I've played a lot of video games through life, but fighting games are not my forte. And it was really nice to talk to him for a while and get a better understanding of what that community's like. And I went after that to YouTube and started doing my research on, the history of fighting games, and super cool. And I really look forward to that community coming in more intensely, and the sim racing community as well coming in more intently. And it's, esports is not just League of Legends. It's not just Call of Duty. There's just such a wide variety of games out there and players. So super cool.
Yeah, I agree with you totally there, Nicholas. The esports term being a catch-all for fighting game community and competitive gaming, maybe if we could all just get past that part of it, if we could all just get past the part about is the E capitalized or is the S capitalized, like it doesn't matter, frankly, long-term. What does matter is that we all are getting together and doing these things and interacting with one another. Like you said, fighting games were really the first competition. I actually had a stand-up Street Fighter arcade cabinet in 2000 in my apartment, and I donated to my fraternity house when I left Texas A&M. But like I'd have the running back for Texas A&M's football team in my apartment playing Street Fighter 2 with me. Like it was awesome. It was a great way to connect with people who are just looking to hang out and have fun. And then it turned into Battle of the Bay, and then it turned into Evo, and now it's owned by RTS, which is a combined thing with Sony and Endeavor. Like that type of growth has been super organic, and the fighting game community has really started that. I have a pair of the Evo Moment 37 Air Force Ones. Like Nike designed a shoe around a specific moment in in Evo. So like all of those things are really cool to see as they continue to happen. And I absolutely love the fighting game community. I think it's a ton of fun to watch. The action is fast. You can do it 1v1. A group of people that I would love to bring more into the Esports Trade Association is the fighting game community. So let's talk a little bit, if we can, about how your company got its name, if you will. Jacob, you mentioned Integrity AV. Did you want to get AV out of the title? What made you amplify it?
No, I mean, I think, when Mark will tell you when he started out in his garage and had no idea what he was doing, which I can relate to when I started my company out of my garage. I think all greats do, right? The Integrity was a great name for the local market here. I mean, we really stood out. We have a good market share of Boise and the events that happen here. But as we progressed to more national events, I think the name amplified, and Mark is a researcher. He did, all of the market research he could. I think it just built more credibility nationwide. Integrity kind of felt like a mom and pop's space in Boise. And it definitely works for this local market. And I'll tell a story that I kind of find funny, that when Mark changed the name, his mom called and was like, "Are you not Integrity anymore?" He's like, whoa, that's still a value. That's still a value. But no, Amplified Production Group, as we grew and as we got more staff and more gear, and it just legitimizes the national work that we do. Like I said, we have primarily serviced the West Coast, but we do nationwide work. We just finished a 30 city tour with a client over 6 weeks. So I think it just lends itself to credibility as far as naming the company, but through our actions, we're still in Integrity AV. That's still where the core of our company is, and the core value that we represent.
Yeah, I love that production is now the term instead of AV. As another company that rebranded from an AV name to something that is a little more generic, but it really speaks to what we do is really popular to do right now, because you and I both know that we do way more than the technology that goes in these rooms.
Totally. Yeah. I was just going to say that even Production Group, we're, at the end of the day, I think both companies, Encore and Amplified, are problem solvers, right? We're here to come up with event solutions that make the event less stressful for everyone involved. Because I know for me, being involved in events is because there's this high pressure, this high level of stress. But when we do it right, that success and that reward afterwards is why we do it, right? So event solutions for a production group like us is really, it's everything from producing creative, working with creatives, working with producers, but finding the right solutions to put on a successful event. And to your point, it's not always just the technology. Sometimes it's speaker management, getting people to get on stage at the right time, coaching people to talk to the camera.
Don't turn your head away from the mic, because the audio gets cracked.
Don't take your mic off and then start talking to the crowd. There's like some 101 stuff that we get the privilege of talking people through. And I actually think that's one of the coolest parts of our job, is people that might be nervous about a crowd or nervous about their content. We get to build some confidence and help them build some credibility with their message and bring it to life. So, like I said, I'm a theater student by training. I was a lighting designer, but also a production manager. And, I never wanted to be a stage manager because they get blamed for everything. But, I got to see stage managers and directors coaching actors, and it translates, because a lot of corporate executives, though they might talk in front of their company, they don't talk in front of thousands of people. So, if you have that event solution mindset of let's get you confident and coach you, everyone has a better experience at the end of the day.
You know what? It's so funny, Jacob. I remember the first production I put on, big production, and I remember Matt Berry was coming. James mentions fantasy football. So I'm on the phone with the manager of the hotel because I cannot find the office of the production engineer in the hotel. And I'm like, I'm down here and I'm following instruction and I'm looking for AV production. And James knows I love to meet the producers of the conference.
Sure.
Just because it's so important, everyone that touches it. And I'm getting frustrated. And I'm saying to the manager, I have looked all over for this department. And the guy's like, I don't know how you can't find me. And I'm like, all I I see is a broom closet. The sign says broom closet. And they're like, yeah,
That's
we're
us.
the office under the stairs. And they never replaced the sign. And it was janitor's closet, maybe. It was something closet.
Mm-hmm.
And lo and behold, I opened the door and there they are. And I'm like, are you kidding me?
Yep.
And I have to, James, you know me so well that I know
Sure.
you could just visualize.
I'm picturing this right now. Go ahead. Yep. Confirm my suspicions.
And lo and behold, there they are. And I bring that up because there is no more, I hope. And now we can't redesign our Chicago hotels. This was in Chicago. So we do lack space, which can lack integrity, i.e. our LG robots that were in an alley of Chicago last year, delivered and dropped off. But what this industry has come to, from AV nerds in a broom closet or janitor's closet under the stairs, to this, unbelievable.
I think it comes down to relating to the icon of the South Park gamer, right? There's an icon of the grouchy technician that I've spent my whole career, even prior to Amplified, fighting against. Like, we're not all jerks. Now, granted, there might be some stereotypical reasoning for that, like being shoved into a broom closet, or the long hours, the lots of caffeine, the lack of sleep. But no matter what, my team specifically, and I've worked at some great venues with a lot of Encore staff that have some similar values, which is like, we're here to be cool. We're here to help you. This is customer service at the end of the day. Yes, the technology can be difficult. Yes, there may be some coaching or training involved, but I think the stereotype of the grouchy technician is dying out, because people are starting to realize how critical AV is to all events, not just corporate, not just esports, not just pharma, but at the end of the day, if you have a good AV provider, you have a good producer, you are going to express your message more clearly. It's going to help the marketing department. It's going to help the sales department. So we're becoming a more integral part of businesses planning, how to engage with their customer, in an in-person setting.
Excellent points, Jacob. Thank you so much for that. And I'm glad to hear that the production group name is really helps solidify where you are in there. And it makes a ton of sense to grow your business from just being an AV company to being a full production company, and really being a strategic partner long-term, as opposed to just somebody you call when you desperately need some, a 100-foot HDMI cable or something like that.
Well, it builds trust and credibility, right? Like it's no longer about, haggling over pennies or dollars. It's about what's right for your production. It's about what you need to express your message and to do the best show that you want, right? It's not our job necessarily to always pitch the biggest, best, newest LED wall. It's to find the solution that expresses your message most accurately and shows your values as a company most accurately. At the end of the day, you don't want your microphone squeaking, so you want a professional that knows how to eliminate feedback, right? Trust us to bring the right sound system with the right operator to make that happen for you. And that trust happens over time. It's never just an overnight, okay, I trust you 100% to be the AV provider, the solutions guy. But when you work with integrity and you do a great job on a production, that trust is obvious over time. That's why our customers have been customers for 15 plus years, is because they know we're going to do the right thing.
Really well said. Really well said. So tell me about Gamers Glorified. What are we glorifying, and why did we pick that name? And what do you want people to think about, maybe, Matthew, when they hear Gamers Glorified?
Yeah, absolutely. So 3 different reasons. First reason, when I brought the community together, I wanted to make them and have them understand that, you guys are special in your own way. We're all individuals, but at the same time, we were coming together for the same cause, which is gaming. So each and every one of you individually are special in your own way in gaming. Second, I grew up in a very religious background. I grew up Catholic. I'm Christian now. So from a religious context, glorified means glorious, where we would, we would glorify Jesus or God. So when I started my business, I wanted to incorporate something to that extent. And then third, it's really just, I'm very witty and creative. So Gamers Glorified, a lot of people call it just GG for short. And in the gaming world, it means good games.
Yep.
So it just flows naturally that way. So those are the reasons why.
Nice when it lines up like that. Absolutely. Yeah. And what do you want people when they hear Gamers Glorified? What do you want them to think about?
That's a really good question. So overall, whenever somebody mentions Gamers Glorified, right now it kind of shifts based off of where I'm shifting as well. In the beginning, when I first started doing events, when people say Gamers Glorified, it was gaming events, right. And that I'm hosting it. Now that I'm more on the educational side, when people say Gamers Glorified, it's like, well, what school are you going to be at with your gaming program, or what library will you be at? So that's where it's at now. And pretty much just me in general, they usually associate, I'm the face of it. Where's McFury competing at, next month, or how does he do good in this tournament? Or, hey, I'm entering a tournament. Can you help me? So it depends on the gamer, to be honest. Now that I really think about it, when they mention Gamers Glorified, it's either coaching, mentoring, educating, and competing, pretty much in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think that's both the story behind why you came up with it and now what it has grown to mean, I think is really important. We talked a little bit about we didn't talk about it, but Nicholas talked about the 3 pillars, the body, the mind, and the spirit. And addressing the spirit is something that we all can do a better job of. The idea of esports, just like the sweaty nerd in their parents' basement, is a toxic online environment. And I play Valorant with my 2 daughters, and neither of them have comms in an unrated. So just bottom line, they have that. But if I find that in 2 or 3 minutes of the first couple rounds that these people are okay to listen to, I'll say, hey, I've got my kids on here. Do you mind if I turn on comms? And if you want to cuss and do all that stuff, great. No problem. Feel free to do it. But understand that there's a 13-year-old girl and an 11-year-old girl on this call who are hearing you talk about this. And if that's the type of person you want to be, great. If you don't want to be that type of person, here's a good reason to not do it, because there are kids who are listening to you. And I think we could do a way better job of increasing that part of the industry. Beth, I know you don't have a company yet, but if you were to maybe come up with your own company, or what do you want people to think about when they hear your name in the industry?
It's the parents taking the route of that esports is a sport. It's, there's artists, there's all of these jobs that are in gaming. I do actually have 2 kids too. I have my son who's 14 and my daughter's about to be 13. So, taking that away from it so people see that it's a real sport, bringing that professionalism. That's kind of why I'm here.
That's fantastic. I was listening to John Davidson's podcast. John Davidson is the chairman of the Esports Trade Association. He has his own podcast called the DLC Drop. And they were talking about just that, where parents were getting involved and were changing the perception of it, where it's an actual physical sport. They said his number was, and forgive me if I'm wrong about this, John, I know you're going to watch this later. It was 87% of kids in competitive gaming had never been on a team before, and had never had coaching and had never had that participation level. And that was completely antithetical to what it means to be a kid. Like, being on a team and getting coaching and improving yourself is tremendously helpful. And that is something that we only used to be able to get through sports or like theater or something like that. So I would say that your point to changing that type of mindset from parents, Gamers Glorified would be a great example of that, and those kids are going to grow up and work at companies like Encore and Amplified. So I think or they'll go and do their own thing like Nicholas and his dad. So those are the types of stereotypes we're trying to change, and hearing that you can talk to Beth about how to get in touch with your kids through gaming, and that it's not something that is in a dark room with nobody else participating is something that I don't think all parents understand. It's something we work as an association and as an industry to improve. Nicholas, I don't know, what name do you want, or what do you want people to think about when they hear about you?
I'm just happy to be involved. Yeah, no, I'm just excited for everything pushing forward as a whole. What I really want to see happen is, right now we're watching some really cool stuff happen with AI, right? and AI is opening up some really cool windows. We have Unreal Engine 5 coming out. We have AI possibilities. I've watched some demos recently of AI being utilized in NPCs and MMORPGs. So these big, massive worlds that, for anybody that hasn't played an MMO before, you make your character, you're the hero, whatever you're running through. I've always wanted to be able to interact and impact the non-player characters, the computers more. Like, what's your story, guy? That's been standing at this dock for 15 years. Like, so to see AI come into that and to have the potential to live a better life in gaming. Like, I'm really burnt out. And I hate to say this because I love shooter games. I love competitive gaming. I love fighting, like all of it. But I'm burnt out a little bit on trying to beat other people. I'm really excited to see a new generation of possibilities where I can build up a community in a game. I've been playing a lot of Rust recently, and for anybody that's played Rust before, that is not the goal there. It's a very hostile environment, to put it softly. Like you're saying with Valorant, and you have these people that get emotional in these games, and they're throwing slurs and cuss words and just and no judgment there. I mean, if that's what somebody needs to do to vent out whatever they're processing, I mean, I get that. But then to your point, you don't know who's on the other end of that line. Right. So what I want to see in gaming is exactly what the mission statement, I think, summarizes for the Esports Trade Association. I think it's building something better and showing people that gaming is not just, young kids or adults slinging obscenities on the internet and causing a lot of drama. Like, there's a lot of really positive things happening in the gaming environment. You have people here in this call today with AV and tech that are involved in the behind the scenes, and like the amount of work that goes into this. And you mentioned childhood acting. I got to see briefly, I lived in Burbank for a little bit, and I got to dive into the background extra work very briefly. And what blew my mind was everybody else. Like, it wasn't the actors, it was the camera guy, the crews, it was all the logistics that go into it, the people setting up for food and the lighting, and like everything that goes into it is just, it's mind-blowing. So we're all doing these jobs, we're all pursuing these careers, we all have this passion and this commonality through gaming, and just seeing all of it kind of swirl together and to be part of something that makes that a more positive environment and takes the stress off, and like to see the competition fade a little bit in a healthy way where we can really lift up everybody on all these different aspects of gaming. That's all over the place with an answer, but that's like, that's it.
Yeah. It's so thought provoking. I have two thoughts. One is how good it feels to win. And then how good it feels to be, a respectable, non-winner. So, like,
loser is what you're trying to say, but in a better way.
What'd you say, James?
A good loser. A good loser.
Right. I was really surprised how competitive I found myself getting at our coffee connection last week with Steve Isaacs and I. We played. Steve Isaacs is with Epic Games, and I have so much excitement around how good of a foosball player I am, because when I was growing up, there were video games and foosball machines, and I just got so good at foosball, I just don't lose at it, and I lost. But it was such a great game. I even had shoutcasters shouting us. I mean, it was taking over the whole coffee. I was profusely sweating. I really thought I was going to win. I totally was like, he won by 1 point. Like, that's how close it was. I say that because I've never won at anything video gaming ever. I just don't have what James's daughter has. But when it comes to business, when you can really lift others, Nick, like you do, it's so special. I had a very large brand say to me less than a week ago, if your industry can understand there really is enough money for everyone, and if your industry, my industry being our industry, if we could all help each other more, we would raise so much faster. It's almost what's slowing us down in their perspective. Does that resonate with anyone?
Yeah, John says a lot. A rising tide lifts all boats. You know, if one person is creating this swell in the industry, then it only helps companies like Amplified and Encore, and helps Gamers Glorified reach more people in the education space. The more that they hear about this amazing tournament, where in Texas, we at the Esports Stadium Arlington last week, TechSF crowned the actual Texas esports champions among high schools and things like that. That is a huge difference between what we're talking about and what has happened in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same vibe in I think successful production groups and AV companies is like there's enough business in the country. You know what I mean? Like, I'm never necessarily directly competing with Encore, or very rarely directly competing with Encore, so we can have these conversations. Production companies, they're in other markets. Sometimes we cross rent from because it makes sense and they're in market, right? It's more about having strategic partners. And I think that applies to the esports arena as well. As everyone that I've engaged with, and I'm going to give a shout out to Danny Martin over at Exposure, who actually connected me with John Davidson, which brings me full circle to coming back to Megan, because Megan knows everybody. But, it wasn't oh man, you're another vendor trying to hit me up. It was, oh, you're genuinely interested in figuring out how to break into the esports market. Yeah. Cool. Let's have a virtual coffee, talk about that, and figure out who I can introduce you to. And across the board, I'm not saying everyone, but 90% of the people that I've interacted with about a genuine curiosity, because I'm still a newbie to the esports arena, even though I was part of the Esports Trade Commission a year ago. I was still learning. I was still growing a part of it. So whenever those conversations happen, it's great to see in the community that they're totally, let me find you someone to connect to. I may not be the right person, but let's develop this and talk about this more. I think is a huge reason to join the Esports Trade Commission. No sales pitch there. It's just that's what's overwhelmingly exciting to me, is that it doesn't matter the industry that I'm coming from or how I'm trying to get involved in esports. Someone is going to help point me in the right direction, whether it's Megan or John Davidson or Danny Martin or Doc over at Boise State. No one shot me down and be like, nope, we've already got a vendor, don't need to talk to you. It's no, let's find you somebody to talk to, because this is a growing community.
I think that's a really great point, Jacob. There's no other industry that will spot a fake quicker than competitive gaming. I have never been around a group of people who can sniff out inauthenticity better than this. I can talk to almost any industry and fake it till I make it, except for this one. And it comes across, and people who are definitely interested, that also comes across. Even if you don't know anything yet, but you really do have a genuine interest, I think it comes across too. So we only have a couple more minutes. I want to give each of you just a quick minute to just say how people can find you, maybe the best way to reach you. Nicholas, we can start with you. Tell us, are you best found on LinkedIn or Twitch, or join our Discord? He's been putting a lot of great links into the chat. So if you are watching that, feel free to look at those. But Nicholas, where are you at, and how could people find you?
LinkedIn's always a great role. LinkedIn.com/Semper Gumby, the gamer tag, SEMPERGUMBI, always flexible. And then I'm also in the ESTA Discord channel very frequently, and I'm hoping to be doing a lot more in that realm soon. So I'm not going to be a hard person to reach, even as I get prepared to go up to Idaho for the summer. Hop in, come say hi, and we'll do some gaming, man. We'll get after it.
Awesome. Beth, what about you? What's the best way to reach you or find you online?
LinkedIn. Or you can say hi to me at the conference.
Even what a great plug there too. So you saw it down, go to esports.
I am actually wearing the shirt too. I just got it in yesterday, so
it looks great.
She's definitely in PR. She's repping for sure.
So smart. I'll do better next time, Meg. I apologize. I did have a client call right before this one, but
did you guys see the jerseys that I'm trying to tease around, the 6 or 3 options?
We have not yet, but that will be a perfect thing, and I definitely want you to show it. But let me just grab some information from Matthew and Jacob before we run out of time. Matthew, what's the best way to reach you?
Yeah, it depends on the reason. If it's business-wise, connection, LinkedIn. If you want a game or anything gaming related, my gamer tag, 99cent McFury. That's, you Google that, I'm on everything. So Steam, Discord, Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, it's universal.
The number 99 or the spelling it out?
The number 99.
So
Yes,
99
sir.
and then Cent, C-E-N-T,
Correct.
and then McFury, M-C-F-U-R-Y.
Correct.
All right. What about you, Jacob? What's the best way to reach you or find out what you're up to?
Yeah, so amplifiedpg.com is the company website. That's if you want to get in contact about an upcoming event or just have an expert to talk to and pick our brains about best way to operate that event. LinkedIn, for me personally and for the Amplified team, I'm probably the major social media poster as far as what's going on in the event world for us. So you can check me out on LinkedIn, Jacob W.P. Ramey. Most of my stuff is posted about Amplified Production Group. So if you want to know what we're working on, either go to our site or check me out on LinkedIn.
Well, that's awesome. And real briefly, I'm also on LinkedIn as James Hess Encore. If you're looking in the tag, or just James Hess, that's where I am on Twitter. My gamer tag is Pocket Calypso. The K is the Calypso is a K. Teamcalypso.gg. If you want to check us out, that's one that me and the girls set up. Would love to communicate with you more. And then Meg, of course, in the MVP. Where's the best way to find you, Meg?
I'm right here. I never leave.
Go to an esport event and swing a string on a rock on a string, and you'll hit Meg for sure.
That's right.
No matter
That's
where it is,
exactly
here in Dallas or in Chicago, wherever. But feel free to go to esportsta.org. Find out more about the association. We'd love to have you all join the association. We'd love to have you at Esports Next, esportsnext.gg. Please come and find us. Thank you so much for the time today, and we sincerely appreciate everybody on this LinkedIn Live.
Great job, everyone.
Have a good one.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
James. Thank
Bye.
y'all.